Welcome to Scoli Sleep Stories. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let the day soften around you and settle in for a calm documentary made for curious minds. If these stories help you rest, learn, or simply enjoy a quieter part of the day, please consider liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. Now, when you are ready, let us begin. Chapter 1: Evening at the Paris Platform. Beneath the broad roof of the Gare de Lyon, evening gathers in reflections. It shines upon damp stone and dark iron. It glimmers along the rails, where pale threads of steam drift close to the ground. It rests in the glass faces of station clocks and in the polished corners of leather cases. Footsteps pass in an orderly rhythm. Paper labels stir against buckled straps. Lamps glow beneath the high roof. Somewhere beyond the platform, a locomotive releases a long, quiet breath of warm vapor and coal smoke. The year might be 1934, or another year between 1931 and 1938. Europe's railways are threaded together by timetables, agreements, and long-distance carriages. Here in Paris, at the Gare de Lyon, one of those threads is about to be drawn eastward. Beside the platform waits the Simplon Orient Express. Its name may suggest a single unchanging train always composed of the same carriages and drawn by the same locomotive. Yet the Orient Express is better understood as a service and even as a network of services. Its routes, rolling stock, and arrangements have altered over time. Tonight's train belongs to the principal interwar service between Paris and Istanbul by the southern route. In the days ahead, it will pass through the Alps and continue into southeastern Europe. The first night will carry it through only a modest part of that distance. The complete journey to Istanbul takes roughly 3 nights, though timings and stops change according to year and season. Dijon lies ahead, then Lausanne, Brigue, and the long Simplon tunnel beneath the mountains. Farther on are Milan and Venice, followed by Trieste, Ljubljana, Zagreb, Belgrade, Sofia, and at last Istanbul. But those names belong to later hours. For now there is only Paris, the evening platform, and the carriage waiting beside you. Its sides are dark blue, deepened almost to black beneath the station roof. Fine gold lines follow the panels, and gold lettering catches the lamps. By the 1930s, newer steel sleeping cars in this blue and gold livery have become a familiar sign of the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons Lits, usually known by its initials CIWL. Older carriages may still appear in service, for trains are assembled according to practical needs. But the newer steel cars lend tonight's formation a calm and substantial air. Their windows reflect the platform lights, their brass handles wait above the pale steam curling around the steps. A porter approaches your luggage. He lifts the heavier case with the practiced balance of someone who has spent years among trunks, parcels, carriage doors, and narrow steps. Another case, made of brown leather, bears several paper labels. One is fresh and clean, printed with a distant destination. Others have softened at the edges through rain and handling. Such labels promise continuity across borders, though the train itself may change as it travels. Carriages can be detached or added, individual through cars may continue, while other vehicles take different routes. The exact formation is a matter of timetables and railway operations, mostly invisible to the passengers settling in for the night. The porter attends to the platform work and the luggage. Beside the carriage entrance, another uniformed figure waits with a reservation list. He is the sleeping car attendant, employed by the Wagons Lits Company. His duties will continue long after the station porters have gone home. He welcomes passengers, checks their reservations, manages the compartments, prepares the beds, answers call buttons, and watches over the sleeping car through the night. He finds your name upon the list and inclines his head. Your ordinary railway ticket has brought you to the train. In addition to that fare, there's a separate sleeping car charge. Together, the ticket and reservation allow you to enter this small moving world of folded linen, polished wood, shaded lamps, and carefully arranged compartments. The brass handle at the door is cool beneath your hand. Below, steam passes around the carriage steps and thins into the evening air. Above, the great station roof holds the mingled scents of damp masonry, warm metal, leather, coffee, and coal smoke. The coffee comes from somewhere along the platform, perhaps from a refreshment room, or from a cup carried by a railway employee nearing the end of his shift. Its dark roasted warmth lingers briefly, Then it gives way to the quieter, cleaner scent within the carriage. Before entering, you pause and look along the train. Sleeping cars, restaurant cars, and service vehicles extend beneath the lights. Farther forward waits the locomotive that will draw the train over the next section of line. It will not remain with these carriages all the way to Istanbul. The wagon's Litz company supplies and staffs the sleeping and restaurant cars, but the journey depends upon several national railway companies. They provide the tracks, stations, signals, operating crews, and locomotives suited to their own lines. As the train crosses from one railway system to another, engines will be changed. Crews will take over from other crews. Each railway will guide the carriages through its own landscape before passing them onward. A passenger may notice only a pause at a station, a softened clank of couplings, or a different whistle at the head of the train. Beneath those quiet exchanges lies a remarkable measure of cooperation. A low announcement travels under the station roof. The words are softened by distance, but the name of the train is clear enough. A few passengers make their final way toward the carriage doors. There is no need for haste. Porters check the platform. Attendants glance along the windows. A man folds his newspaper before climbing aboard. A woman adjusts the fastening of one glove, while a small case is placed carefully behind her. Near the center of the platform, the station clock draws close to the appointed minute. Its dark hands move almost imperceptibly. Beneath it, people exchange farewells without spectacle. A hand is raised, a hat tilts. Two figures remain together until the last practical moment, then separate. One enters the train, the other steps back beneath the lamps. You pass through the carriage doorway. For a moment you stand between two atmospheres. Behind you are the high echoes of the station, the gentle hiss of steam, and the cool evening air. Ahead lies a narrow corridor, warmly lit, with carpet beneath your feet, and polished fittings along the walls. The attendant directs you toward your compartment. There is still a little time before departure, and the platform remains visible through the corridor window. Your leather case has already been brought aboard. The porter has placed it where the attendant can secure it properly. Its paper label rests against the brown surface, bearing the name of a city many hundreds of miles away. That name seems almost unreal in the Paris evening. Yet this is how long journeys begin, not with distant mountains or unfamiliar borders, but with a numbered compartment, a checked reservation, and one suitcase carefully set down. Outside, a carriage door closes. Another follows farther along the platform. Each produces a firm but muted sound, repeated down the length of the train. The sleeping car attendant checks the entrance and turns the handle into place. He does not hurry. His movements have the calm precision of a familiar routine. The clock reaches the appointed minute. A whistle sounds near the head of the train. The locomotive answers with a deeper breath. For an instant, nothing seems to move. The platform lamps remain steady. The station clock hangs above the stone. The carriage rests beside the waiting rails. Then, a gentle tension passes through the couplings, moving from vehicle to vehicle. The floor beneath you gives the smallest answering motion. The train begins to roll. At first, the platform seems to glide backward, rather than the carriage moving forward. Porters pass the window one by one. Waiting passengers drift away beneath the lamps. The station clock slips behind an iron column, appears once more, and is gone. The great roof moves overhead in dark sections. Reflections travel along the carriage windows. The wheels cross points with a measured sequence of sounds, irregular at first, then gradually settling. Paris continues beyond the station in walls, bridges, signal lights, and rows of windows shining above evening streets. For a little while, the city remains close. Lamps pass across the glass. Brickwork rises and falls beside the line. A signal glows briefly, then slips behind the train. The Simplon Orient Express does not hurry toward distant borders. It gathers its pace patiently, carrying its passengers into the first night of a journey that will unfold over several days. The activity of the platform has already begun to recede. Announcements are left behind beneath the station roof. Farewells become memory. Coal smoke thins in the evening air. Within the carriage, footsteps soften upon the carpet. Compartment doors wait in a quiet row. The sleeping car attendant moves along the corridor, making certain that every passenger has found the proper place. Behind the glass, the last Paris lamps slide across the windows in bands of amber and gold. Your hand leaves the cool brass handle beside the entrance. A few steps farther in, the same lamplight rests upon warmer brass fittings, polished wood, and the quiet doors of the sleeping car. Beyond them, as Paris slowly falls away, The wheels find their steady rhythm. Chapter 2. The Corridor of Polished Wood. The corridor extends ahead in a long, softly lighted line. It is narrow enough that you could touch the compartment doors with one hand and the outer windows with the other, yet it does not feel severe. A thick carpet runner lies beneath your feet. Amber lamps shine upon brass edges and numbered plates, while the dark windows hold faint reflections of the carriage interior. Beyond the glass, Paris passes in fragments. A brick wall slips by, followed by the pale face of a warehouse and the brief opening of a side street. Signal lamps appear as points of red and green, floating for a moment in the darkness. Then the train enters another band of shadow, and the corridor becomes its own quiet world. The sleeping car has a steel body, as many fine railway carriages did by the 1930s. Inside, careful workmanship softens that modern shell. Polished wood veneer covers much of the corridor wall. Narrow bands of marquetry, made from fitted pieces of contrasting wood, decorate some panels. Fabric, carpet, and brass lend warmth to the compact space. None of these materials can conceal the movement of the train. The carriage leans gently, then returns. Door handles sway almost together. Somewhere behind a wall panel comes a quiet creak. Beneath it all continues the rhythm of the wheels, softened by upholstery and curtains, but never absent. A man approaches with the practiced balance of someone accustomed to moving trains. He is the sleeping car attendant, known in the service of the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons Lits as the conducteur. Each sleeping car commonly has an attendant of its own, responsible for the passengers and the orderly life of the carriage. He greeted you when you boarded, checked your reservation, and helped place the luggage. Now he pauses beside your compartment and asks in a low voice whether everything is satisfactory. His manner is attentive without being watchful, formal without being distant. International sleeping car attendants meet passengers from many countries. A conducteur may speak several languages, changing from one to another as he checks a ticket, answers a question, or explains arrangements for the night. His duties include preparing berths, assisting with luggage, handling small requests, watching the corridor, and helping when tickets or travel documents must be ready for inspection. During the long hours after passengers have withdrawn, his quiet presence gives the carriage a reassuring continuity. He opens the compartment door and stands aside. By day, the compartment resembles a small private sitting room. Upholstered seating occupies one wall, broad enough for two travelers. A small table stands beneath the window, with space for a book, a cup, a folded timetable, and perhaps a pair of gloves. Almost every surface has a purpose. A mirror is fitted securely to the wall. A cabinet opens to reveal a folding basin. The water provided is intended for simple washing, enough to refresh the hands and face after the station, or make the morning more comfortable. It is not intended for bathing. Toilets are shared and normally found at the ends of the carriage. Near the mirror are hooks for a coat and hat. A rack above the seat holds lighter belongings. Straps secure luggage against the train's motion, while a netted pocket keeps papers from slipping to the floor. Heavy curtains can be drawn across the window, and a blind offers another layer against the lamps of passing stations. Beside the seat is a reading lamp, placed so its light falls over a page, without filling the compartment. Nearby is a call button or bell for the attendant, a simple fitting framed by metal. Pressing it summons the conducteur, who will come when he is able. The train takes a broad curve, the curtain stirs against the window frame, and your shoulder feels the side-to-side motion of open-line travel. The attendant rests 2 fingers against the door frame, adjusting naturally to the curve. He explains that the compartment will be prepared later. Sleeping car compartments serve one purpose by day and another by night. The seat conceals part of the bedding arrangement, while another berth may be folded into the wall above. When the time comes, the attendant will arrange the lower bed, lower the upper berth if required, and set out sheets, pillows, and blankets. The sitting room will become a bedroom through a series of practiced movements. The exact arrangement varies. The Wagons Lits company use several kinds of sleeping cars, and both S-Type and the more spacious LX-Type cars could appear within the wider Simplon Orient Express operation. Route, period, and available rolling stock influenced the composition of a train, so not every compartment was alike. Some could be prepared with a single berth, while others held 2. Not every passenger traveled privately. A two-berth compartment might be shared by passengers of the same sex under the usual booking arrangements. A traveler with greater means might pay to occupy one alone. Privacy was partly a matter of accommodation and partly a matter of price. Tonight the room is quiet and orderly. The upper berth remains concealed and the compartment feels more like a little salon than a bedroom. Your larger case is secured where it will not shift, while a smaller bag rests within reach. The conductor checks the luggage strap, then closes the washing cabinet with a muted click. The compartment is warmer than the corridor. These carriages should not be imagined with modern air conditioning. With the door shut and the heavy curtains drawn, the room may feel enclosed or faintly stuffy. For now, the door remains open, allowing cooler corridor air to enter. You return to the passageway, while the attendant continues toward the neighboring compartment. Through one open door, another traveler places a book upon a table. Farther along, a passenger asks a quiet question, and the conductor replies in an equally quiet voice. From behind a closed door comes the muted sound of belongings being arranged, followed by stillness. The corridor lamps repeat at measured intervals. Light settles upon each brass number, then fades across the darker wood between the doors. Here and there, the veneer reflects a blurred image of carpet and moving windows. The sleeping car sways again. For an instant the compartment handles lean in the same direction, then settle back. Through the windows a signal appears, bright and solitary, before sliding behind the train. The joints in the track send a gentle sequence beneath your feet, a soft knock under the floor, a restrained tremor through the wall, and a brief metallic murmur from between the cars. Upholstery absorbs the sharper echoes, carpet quiets footsteps, and heavy curtains make the interior feel protected from the open railway. Yet, the train remains present in every object. It sways through the handles, hums beneath the table, and sends glimpses of signals across the glass. This balance between shelter and motion gives the carriage its character. It is not a room standing still, nor does it pretend to be one. It is a carefully made nighttime home carried upon rails. The fittings are compact because space is limited. The straps, hooks, racks, curtains, and folding pieces all belong to a place designed to travel. The conductor returns with fresh linen over one arm and asks when you would like the compartment prepared. After dinner will be quite suitable, he says. By the time you return, the seat can be changed into a berth, the curtains drawn, and the reading lamp left ready beside the pillow. For now, the evening is still beginning. From somewhere ahead comes the faint movement of crockery. The dining car is receiving its passengers. A glass is placed upon linen. A cupboard is secured. A door closes with a subdued click. The attendant indicates the way, and you follow the corridor past the final numbered compartments. Behind you waits the little room with its mirror, folding basin, concealed bedding, secured luggage, and timetable upon the table. Beyond the windows, the close lights of Paris have grown fewer. Darkness gathers between them, leaving only an occasional signal or distant lamp to glide across the glass. At the end of the sleeping car, the carpet gives way to the enclosed gangway, where the rails sound a little clearer. The floor moves with a firmer rhythm beneath your feet. A door opens and warm light reaches across the narrow passage. Beyond it, shaded lamps glow over white linen, glassware, and polished fittings. With one hand resting lightly upon the rail, you step toward the dining car. Chapter 3. Lamps in the dining car. The joining passage is only a few steps long, yet it feels like a small crossing from one world into another. Beneath your feet, the flexible gangway shifts gently as the two carriages move upon the rails. Here, the sound of the train is closer, no longer softened by thick carpet and heavy curtains. Wheels murmur beneath the floor. Metal gives a quiet creak. The enclosed walls tremble faintly around you. The gangway is narrower than the corridor behind, and a little less steady, for it lies between the ends of two separate cars. A brass handle offers support, smooth and cool beneath your hand. You cross the final moving plate, pass through another door, and enter the dining car. Warm light settles around you. The room is not large. It has none of the broad spaces of a grand hotel dining room, though much of its workmanship recalls one. Tables stand along both sides of a central aisle, leaving just enough room for stewards to pass. Upholstered chairs face one another across white cloths. Polished and inlaid wood lines the walls, its rich surface catching the glow of shaded lamps. Brass fittings shine more softly, reflected in dark windows and framed glass. The effect is elegant, but intimate. Everything has been made to fit within the measured width of a railway carriage. Each chair, table, cupboard, and service station has its appointed place. Nothing is present merely to fill space. The narrowness draws the room together, so that the lamps seem warmer and the quiet conversations seem nearer, though no words rise clearly above the sound of the train. A steward greets you with a slight inclination of his head. He does not hurry. He has learned to move in agreement with the carriage, allowing for its sway before it arrives. As the train leans gently around a curve, he adjusts his step almost without appearing to do so. One hand rests briefly against the back of a chair. The other indicates your table beside the window. Your place has already been laid. A white cloth covers the table, falling in careful folds at the sides. The vibration of the carriage makes its surface lift and settle, so slightly that the motion is visible only where the lamplight meets the weave. A plate stands at the center of the setting. Beside it lie polished pieces of cutlery, arranged with quiet precision. A folded napkin waits above them, and the glasses are heavier than those found in an ordinary cafe. Their weight gives them steadiness. They tremble softly when the wheels pass over a change in the track, but remain where they were placed. The steward draws back the chair, and you sit. Outside the window, the last of the Paris suburbs continues to pass. Rows of buildings appear briefly beneath street lamps, then slide away. Upper windows glow above workshops and walls. A bridge crosses overhead, filling the glass with shadow for a moment. Beyond it come storage yards, sidings, and long ranks of freight wagons, waiting beneath pale lamps. The outer landscape is mingled with reflections from within. The dining car floats upon the dark glass. Shaded lamps, white tables, a brass rail, and the faint outline of a steward passing behind you. For a time, the city and the carriage occupy the same surface. Chimneys move through reflections of glassware. Signal lights shine beside the image of a folded napkin. Then the view changes, and the warm room returns more clearly. The dining car shares the character of the sleeping cars through which you have come. During these interwar years, steel restaurant cars of the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons Lit often wear the same dark blue exterior and gold lettering as the sleeping cars. Seen from a platform, the train forms a long, composed line of blue and gold. From within, each carriage has its own purpose. The sleeping car offers private compartments and quiet corridors. Here, the restaurant car contains both dining room and kitchen. It is not simply a lounge supplied with food from the station. Behind the service door, cooks are already at work in a compact galley, preparing dinner while the entire room travels east. Whenever the door opens, a gentle fragrance reaches your table. There is warm bread and butter, fresh coffee, and the deeper aroma of stock. The kitchen must be orderly. Space is limited, and every movement matters. Pots, utensils, china, and silver-plated serving pieces need secure places. Cupboards must close firmly. Hot dishes must pass from cook to steward with care. Yet little of this work announces itself. The service door closes, the kitchen sounds soften, and the dining room remains composed. At a nearby table, a spoon touches a saucer once. The note is clear, but delicate. It fades into the surrounding murmur. Two passengers speaking in low voices, a chair shifting upon the floor, and the soft contact of a bottle being placed upon linen. Condensation has gathered on the mineral water bottles. Small beads catch the lamplight and descend slowly toward their bases. A steward sets a basket of bread upon your table. Beneath the folded cloth, the rolls are still warm. There is a mild scent of crust and flour, familiar and reassuring amid the polished formality of the room. A small dish of butter follows. It is pale and neatly shaped, its cool surface beginning to soften at the edges. The carriage sways again very gently. Beneath each end of the car is a bogie, a pivoting assembly that carries the wheels and turns slightly as the train follows a curve. These bogies allow a long steel carriage to ride more smoothly than the shorter railway vehicles of earlier decades. They cannot remove every vibration, nor would the journey feel quite alive if they did. A faint movement continues through the floor, the chair, and the rim of the water glass. The sound below is never entirely uniform. On a straight length of track, the wheels settle into a broad, flowing rhythm. Across points, where one rail route joins another, the pattern becomes more intricate for a few moments. On a bridge, the sound deepens. In a tunnel, it gathers around the carriage. Near a platform, braking softens the pace and draws out a low metallic whisper. The familiar beat of rail joints appears and disappears according to the track, sometimes distinct, sometimes blended into a continuous hum. The stewards understand these changes. One waits half a step before lifting a tray from a sideboard. Another pauses as the train passes over points, then continues along the central aisle with easy balance. Their calm is part of the dining car's comfort, as essential as the linen, polished wood, and shaded lamps. Although a dining car may have more than one section, the total number of seats is only a few dozen, depending upon the particular vehicle and its arrangement. This is a traveling restaurant measured in carriage lengths rather than hotel halls. A partition farther along suggests another section beyond, similarly furnished and softly lit. The limited space keeps the service personal. A steward is never very far away, yet seldom seems to intrude. Outside, the industrial edges of Paris begin to thin. There are longer intervals of darkness between the lamps. A station platform glides by, almost empty, its name visible only for a moment before it slips behind the carriage. A railway worker stands near a signal hut, his figure still beneath the light. Then come allotment gardens, low houses, and open patches of land where the night gathers more deeply. Within the window, your own table becomes brighter than the countryside. The glass now shows the dining room more readily than the world beyond. You can see the double image of the lamp, one above the cloth, another suspended in darkness outside. Between them, distant points of light drift past, perhaps from a house or a lamp beside the railway. A bottle is opened with a restrained sound. Mineral water pours into your glass, clear and steady. Its surface tilts almost imperceptibly as the carriage moves, then settles. Across the aisle, a passenger unfolds a newspaper, but after a few lines, allows it to rest beside the plate. Another traveler looks toward the window, watching the last suburban lights recede. Nearby conversations remain indistinct. A few words in French, a lower reply in another language, and then a pause. International trains gather voices as they gather luggage labels. Each comes from somewhere different, and all are carried for a time within the same quiet motion. No one needs to speak loudly. The compact dimensions of the room, the softened furnishings, and the shared awareness of evening encourage restraint. A steward approaches with menus held flat against one hand. Their covers are neat, and their pages firm enough to be read despite the slight movement of the train. He places one before you, aligning it gently with the edge of the table. For a moment you look around the carriage once more. White linen rests beneath amber light. Heavy glasses hold small reflections of brass. The polished wood seems darker now that open country has replaced the city. Beyond the service door, dinner is being prepared in the narrow kitchen, where each pan, plate, and serving piece has its place. The wheels pass onto another stretch of rail, and their rhythm grows softer. The cloth rises and settles. A distant signal moves across the window as a small point of color, then disappears into the night behind you. The steward returns. With a practiced motion, he lifts the folded napkin and lets it open quietly before you. From the galley comes the first course. A silver-plated vessel catches the lamplight, and a cup of clear, warm consommé is set carefully upon its saucer. Chapter 4. Dinner Across the Rails. The consommé is clear and amber, served in a small-handled cup resting neatly upon its saucer. A few fine herbs float near the surface. When the train passes over a set of points, the liquid makes a delicate sound against the porcelain, so soft that it is almost hidden beneath the murmur of the wheels. You lift the cup by its handles. The broth is light, warm, and carefully seasoned. It seems particularly suited to a railway dinner. It requires no elaborate arrangement, and loses none of its character when the carriage leans gently into a curve. Across the table, the water in the heavy glass tilts by the smallest degree. Its surface settles again as the track straightens. The menu stands nearby in a decorative holder, part of the composed appearance of the table. Such menus are not identical on every journey. The dining service of the Compagnie Internationale de Wagon-Lit is known for French-influenced cooking and attentive presentation, but the dishes depend upon the route, the season, available supplies, and the customs of the year. Some trains offer a fixed meal while others allow passengers to choose from an a la carte list. On certain services, the menu changes daily as the train moves through different regions. Tonight's dinner is restrained and comfortable, rather than ceremonial. The courses are chosen to travel well, to be served gracefully, and to suit an evening spent in motion. There is no need for a grand banquet. The luxury lies instead in fresh linen, warm food, measured service, and the remarkable fact that a proper restaurant is moving steadily through the countryside. The steward waits until you have finished before approaching. He does not hurry you, nor does he leave the empty cup for long. Saucer, cup, and spoon are lifted together, held close so they cannot shift. Another steward follows with a covered dish. The two men pass one another without speaking, guided by a routine practiced over many journeys. Beyond the service door, the kitchen occupies only a small part of the carriage. It is a narrow working space, warmer, louder, and more aromatic than the dining room. There, the staff work shoulder to shoulder among fitted cupboards, ranges, sinks, water tanks, an ice chest, and modest preparation surfaces. In this period, cool storage aboard a train may depend upon carefully managed ice rather than modern refrigeration. Water is carried in tanks and replenished during the journey. Every part of the kitchen is designed with movement in mind. Cupboards have firm latches, shelves are edged with raised lips, bottles and utensils rest in fitted racks that hold them securely. Pots sit upon a coal-fired range, and oven doors fasten properly. Nothing is left loose when the wheels cross a junction or the locomotive begins to slow. The cooks know the motion of the railway almost as well as the crew farther forward. A change in vibration may announce a curve before the carriage noticeably turns. A softer rhythm may mean smoother track ahead. From these small signs, the kitchen staff judge when to lift a pan, when to open a cupboard, and when to wait for a few quiet seconds. The next plate brings sole with a mild butter sauce. The fish is tender and plainly arranged, with no unnecessary ornament to slide as the carriage sways. The sauce shines beneath the shaded lamp. When your fork touches the plate, you feel the train's rhythm through the table. It is a gentle, repeating movement, firm enough to notice, yet already familiar. Outside, the remaining traces of evening have faded. The windows now return the dining car to itself. In the dark glass, you can see the lamps, the white tables, and the softened outlines of passengers. At times, a distant farmhouse light passes behind the reflection. It appears for an instant beside a silver water jug, then slips away. Conversation continues at a low level. A man near the far end of the carriage speaks about a hotel he once knew near the Danube. His companion replies with only a few words. At another table, two travelers compare the names printed on their luggage labels. Their voices rise slightly when the wheels cross a bridge, then soften again as the train returns to steady rail. The steward removes the fish plate. He braces one knee lightly against the table's fixed base as the carriage moves through another curve. The gesture is so discreet that it seems part of the service itself. He gathers the cutlery, replaces what is needed, and straightens the edge of the cloth with the back of two fingers. A bottle of wine is brought in a small basket. The steward presents the label, then draws the cork without flourish. He is about to pour when the train enters a long bend. Feeling the change before the wine reaches the glass, he pauses. His hand remains steady above the table. Only when the carriage settles does he tilt the bottle, sending a narrow stream into the glass without touching its rim. The skill appears effortless because the effort has been absorbed into habit. Dining car stewards learn to carry plates close to the body, to steady themselves with a hip or knee, and to leave enough space between bottle and glass. They time their steps around braking, acceleration, and curves. A tray held too far forward would be difficult to control. Held near the chest, it moves with the steward rather than against him. The main course arrives as roast chicken with peas and small potatoes. It is familiar food, prepared with care. The chicken is lightly browned, the potatoes are soft within, and the peas retain their color. A spoonful of cooking juices gathers at one side of the plate when the carriage inclines, then returns as the train straightens. The kitchen has produced this dinner within a space scarcely larger than a pantry. In its warm air mingle the aromas of stock, butter, roasted meat, coffee, and clean steam. Plates are warmed, portions arranged, covers placed, and each order kept in mind. A cook turns from range to preparation board with only a step. Another reaches above for a dish, closes the cupboard latch, and makes room for a steward returning with used plates. There is no wild movement in that narrow kitchen, and no flame leaping carelessly from the range. The heat is tended with the same discipline seen in the dining room. Water, crockery, provisions, and ice are managed as practical resources. Supplies may change along the route, and water tanks must be replenished during travel. Farther along the journey, the restaurant car itself may be exchanged for another. A dining car leaving Paris does not necessarily remain attached all the way to Istanbul. Rolling stock and service arrangements vary according to route, timetable, and the way the journey unfolds. An operating need. To the passenger, however, the evening feels continuous. The table remains steady beneath your hands. The lamps retain their amber glow. The stewards continue along the aisle with the calm assurance of people who understand both hospitality and rails. Dress at dinner is tidy and somewhat formal by later standards, though not everyone appears in full evening clothes. One traveler wears a dark suit with a carefully knotted tie. Another has changed only his collar before coming from his compartment. A woman nearby has placed a light shawl over her traveling dress. Courtesy matters more than display. Napkins are unfolded, voices remain low, and strangers sharing a table allow one another an easy reserve. The roast chicken is followed by a small plate of French cheese with crisp biscuits. The cheese is mild and rounded. A biscuit breaks with a quiet snap. At that same moment, the locomotive gives a muted whistle, and the sound travels back along the train before dissolving into the night. Around you, conversation has begun to shorten. Longer stories give way to brief observations. Someone remarks upon the smoothness of the line. Another asks how long remains before the next station. A steward answers in a low voice, glancing toward a small clock mounted beyond the service door. For dessert, there is a pear, poached until tender, and served with a little clear syrup. It moves almost imperceptibly in a shallow dish. The flavor is simple and fragrant, a gentle conclusion after the warm main course and cheese. Elsewhere, passengers have chosen grapes, compote, or a small pastry. The menu offers variety, but no course is made more complicated than the journey allows. One by one, plates disappear beneath polished covers. Crumbs are brushed from the linen with a folded napkin. Glasses are removed or refilled with bottled mineral water. The carriage feels quieter now, as though dinner itself has absorbed the last of the evening's bustle. Then coffee arrives in a small cup. The steward waits through a brief application of the brakes, before pouring. Outside, a signal lamp passes through the darkness, its small point of color sliding across the reflected dining car. The coffee settles, dark and still, while the final plates are quietly cleared. Beside the cup you place a folded timetable and a slim route booklet. Their printed lines carry the journey onward, through junctions, borders, and distant cities. For now they remain closed beneath the amber lamp, waiting beside the coffee as the train continues east. Chapter 5. Coffee, Maps, and Distant Borders. The coffee gives off a narrow ribbon of steam beneath the shaded lamp. Its dark surface trembles when the wheels pass over a crossing, then becomes still again. Beside it stands a glass of mineral water, clear and cool, with tiny bubbles resting along the sides. Beyond the table, the window has become dark glass. It reflects the white linen, the brass lamp fitting, and your own quiet figure more clearly than it reveals the countryside outside. Dinner is ending all along the car. A steward carries away the last silver dishes. Another straightens a chair that has shifted slightly with the motion of the train. At a table near the far end, two passengers finish a conversation in low voices, pausing between sentences as though neither wishes to begin another subject. The soft clink of a cup against a saucer sounds briefly, then disappears beneath the measured rhythm of the rails. You unfold the timetable beside your coffee. It is not a grand map fixed to the wall with every railway in Europe drawn in bright colors. It is something smaller and more practical. A slim booklet issued for travelers, printed in careful type. Its pages offer columns of stations and times, with occasional notes in the margins. Some services run on particular days, Some connections change with the season. A line that seems simple at first may divide at a junction, continue under another railway administration, or carry certain carriages onward, while others take a different route. The name on the cover belongs to the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons Lits, usually shortened to CIWL. This international sleeping car company arranges much of the comfort surrounding you now. The sleeping compartments, the attendants, the dining service, and the through-car arrangements all help passengers cross great distances with fewer disruptions. The name Orient Express may suggest a single unchanging train, making precisely the same journey year after year. In practice, it refers to a network of related services, routes, and through carriages. Timetables alter, service patterns change, cars may be attached or detached at important junctions, exchanged between trains, or directed toward different destinations. A traveler may remain in the same sleeping car for a very long distance, while the train around that car gradually changes. You trace one printed line with a fingertip. This service, the Simplon Orient Express, runs eastward from Paris toward Dijon, and then Lausanne. From there, it approaches Brigue and the mountains, passing through the long Simplon tunnel before descending into Italy. Milan appears farther down the page, followed by Venice and Trieste. Beyond them lie Ljubljana, Zagreb, Belgrade, Sofia, and at last Istanbul. The names grow more distant as they descend the page. Tonight, however, the train is still on its first night out of Paris. The nearest international frontier is Switzerland. Italy and the Balkans belong to later pages and later days. The whole journey toward Istanbul takes roughly 3 nights, although exact schedules and stopping patterns vary with the season and the year. The timetable does not make the distance feel hurried. It simply arranges it into quiet stages: a station, an hour, a connection, a border, then another long stretch of track. Istanbul is printed there in dark type, just as it was printed on 1 or 2 luggage labels glimpsed earlier on the Paris platform. For now, it is less an approaching city than a far-off name carried safely in the train's keeping. At another table, a passenger opens a small leather wallet. Within it are several folded banknotes, not all of the same size or color. International travel may require more than one currency. French francs are useful near the beginning of the route, while other money will be needed farther east. Yet the passenger does not have to settle every small matter at every border. International tickets cover the principal journey, and meals may be included or arranged through the sleeping car service. Much of the repeated exchange of coins and notes can therefore be avoided. The wallet closes softly. Documents are another ordinary part of the route. Passports, border stamps, customs declarations, and in some places currency controls are familiar elements of international travel between the wars. They sound formal when named together, but aboard the train they are often managed with practiced calm. Before an inspection, the sleeping car attendant may collect passports and tickets, placing them in order so that officials can examine them efficiently. This courtesy can reduce the disturbance, though it cannot promise that every passenger will sleep through every frontier check. An official may still need to compare a face with a photograph, ask a brief question, or inspect a declaration. Even so, the routine is familiar to the staff. The necessary papers are prepared before the station lamps appear, then returned when the formalities are complete. A quiet exchange near the dining car door shows how easily these small duties pass from one member of staff to another. A steward speaks to the sleeping car attendant in French, confirming the number of a compartment and the name written on a ticket envelope. French is useful here, not only because the train began in Paris, but because it remains common in international hospitality, diplomacy, and railway work. Along the route, staff members and officials may have different native languages. A few shared phrases allow practical matters to move smoothly from one person to the next. The attendant nods and slips the envelope into an inner pocket. There is no urgency in the gesture. The papers have simply entered the well-established current of the journey. You turn another page. Fine printed marks explain that some carriages continue farther than others. A through car may be labeled for Istanbul, Athens, Bucharest, Paris, Calais, or another point, depending on the service and its connections. At a major junction, railway workers may uncouple one group of cars and attach another. Passengers within a through sleeping car may notice little more than a pause, a muted knock beneath the floor, and a slightly different rhythm when movement resumes. The locomotives change as well. No single engine carries the train all the way from Paris to Istanbul. Different national railways provide their own locomotives and crews, Engines may also be exchanged at operating points where the terrain or railway requirements make another type more suitable. One locomotive brings the train to a handover station. Another waits to take charge of the next section. From the dining car, these changes are mostly invisible. The sleeping cars continue to offer the same polished wood, folded linen, and shaded lamps. Outside, engines, crews, uniforms, and railway administrations quietly succeed one another. The train is both continuous and changing. It is a moving arrangement, renewed at every stage. The idea is reassuring rather than complicated. No one person must carry the whole journey. One crew tends a section of line, then passes the train onward. One locomotive rests while another begins its work. An attendant checks the compartments. A steward clears the cups. Station staff prepare the route ahead. The great distance becomes manageable because the work is shared. The passengers at the far table rise and depart, their footsteps crossing the carpet with little sound. A steward draws their chairs into place and gathers the remaining glasses. Beneath the amber lamps, the linen looks pale and smooth. Reflections drift across the window as the carriage sways gently from side to side. You fold the timetable along its original crease. It has provided enough of the road ahead for one evening. Lausanne, Brig, Milan, Venice, and the cities beyond can remain upon the closed pages. The next frontier will arrive in its own time, accompanied by low voices, official stamps, and the discreet attention of the train's staff. Outside, a station passes without a stop. Its lamps appear one by one, briefly revealing a sign, a bench, and a clock beneath the canopy. Then the platform slips away, and the dark reflection returns to the window. The steward comes for the final cup. You lift it once more, take the last warm taste of coffee, and set it gently into the saucer. The mineral water glass follows. The booklet and folded timetable fit easily into your hand. At the dining car door, the steward offers a quiet good evening. Beyond him, the flexible gangway moves softly between the carriages. Its metal plates shift beneath the covering, and the sound of the wheels rises for a moment from below. You cross at an unhurried pace. Behind you, the warm glow of the dining car narrows as the door closes. Ahead lies the quieter corridor of the sleeping car, with its shaded lamps, reflected brass, and heavy curtains. The attendant is there, moving calmly from one compartment to the next, preparing the carriage for sleep. Much of the practical work of the night can remain in the staff's experienced hands. The timetable rests lightly in yours. Beyond the windows, the approaching frontier is still distant and dark. You continue along the corridor as the train carries you steadily onward. Chapter 6. A Compartment Prepared for Sleep. The door from the gangway settles into its frame behind you, and the louder voice of the rails softens. Here, in the sleeping car, carpet, curtains, polished wood, and thick upholstery quiet the sharper sounds without removing them entirely. The wheels remain present beneath everything, turning steadily through the evening. Springs respond to the curves with patient movements. Somewhere within the carriage, a brass fitting gives a faint click, then is still. The attendant stands beneath a shaded corridor lamp. In its amber light, the buttons of his uniform catch a subdued gleam. He returns a folded document to a passenger, answers a softly spoken question, and then comes toward you. Your compartment has been prepared. During the day, it was a small sitting room with upholstered seats. Now it has become a sleeping room. This change from daytime seating to nighttime berths is one of the ordinary wonders of the sleeping car. Nothing unnecessary has been added. Instead, the room has been rearranged with care, using spaces and fittings that remained almost invisible through the afternoon. The attendant opens the door and steps aside. A berth occupies one wall, neatly made with clean, dry linen. The sheets are drawn smooth across the mattress, and a pillow rests beneath a small reading lamp. Over the sheet lies a warm blanket with a closely bound edge. Its weight gives the narrow bed a feeling of completeness, as though every useful thing has been considered. The bedding was stored out of sight during the day. Depending on the carriage, the attendant might lower a berth from the wall or unfold it after rearranging the seats. In the morning, he will reverse the process. Blankets, pillows, and linen will be put away, and the compartment will return to its daytime form. Some compartments provide a single berth, Others hold two, often one above the other, according to the accommodation in booking. A wealthy traveler might reserve an entire compartment. Other passengers share a two-berth room, commonly with a traveler of the same sex. Comfort and careful service do not mean that every passenger travels privately. Tonight, the arrangement is simple and peaceful. Your larger case is secured where it cannot shift around a curve, held firmly against the luggage rack. A lighter bag rests beneath the berth, within reach but clear of the narrow floor. Your coat hangs beside the door, one sleeve touching the wooden panel. The attendant asks whether you need anything else from the case. You remove only a watch, a pair of spectacles, and the timetable carried from the dining car. They are placed upon the narrow shelf beside the berth. The paper has the faint stiffness of many careful foldings. Its rows of station names and times wait for morning. On the opposite wall, a clear mirror sits within a polished frame. A compact washing cabinet opens to reveal a folding basin. The porcelain feels cool beneath your fingertips. The attendant provides water for washing and places a clean cloth nearby. It is a modest arrangement, intended for washing the hands and face. The basin is not meant for bathing, and there is no private shower behind the wooden panels. The toilets are shared and located at the end of the carriage. Yet within the compartment's limited dimensions, the basin offers privacy and convenience. When it is no longer needed, it folds away and the cabinet closes. You wash slowly, listening to the slight movement of water. Its surface tilts almost too gently to notice as the carriage sways. A circle of lamplight rests upon the porcelain, then shifts by the width of a coin. The cool water is refreshing after the warmth of the dining car. The compartment is comfortable, though faintly warm by modern expectations. Ventilation on a train of this period is not precisely controlled. There is no panel for choosing an exact temperature, only vents, windows, heating arrangements, and the practical judgment of the staff. With the door closed and the heavy curtain drawn, the air may become still. The attendant adjusts the ventilation as far as the fittings allow. Cooler air enters, carrying a suggestion of night and distant fields. It meets the warmth of the carriage and settles near the window. Then he draws the curtain across the glass. Before the fabric closes, you see your reflection laid over the darkness outside. Behind it, a few lights drift across the landscape. Perhaps they belong to a village road or the yard of a quiet station. They pass before they can be understood. The curtain meets the frame, and the compartment becomes a room unto itself. The reading lamp casts a gentle pool of light above the pillow. Near the berth is a call button, or bell connected with the attendant's place in the carriage. If you need assistance, you have only to use it. He will remain nearby, preparing beds, helping with travel documents, watching the corridor, and answering an occasional summons. He points out the fastening on the door. It can be secured from within, providing privacy while the train continues across borders and through unfamiliar stations. Outside, the attendant keeps his quiet watch. A water glass is set within reach. Its rim makes a clear sound against the holder, then becomes still. The attendant folds back one corner of the blanket. Your shoes are placed together beneath the berth, their toes aligned toward the wall. Nothing blocks the floor or lies where the train's movement might disturb it. You thank him and sit upon the edge of the berth. The mattress responds beneath you. It is narrower than a bed in a stationary hotel, yet carefully fitted to the space. The wall is close at one side, and the heavy curtain hangs at the other. The compartment gathers around you with the compact order of a small cabin. You place your watch beside the timetable. The spectacles rest upon the folded paper, their arms closed. For a moment the watch face catches the lamplight. Its hands continue their measured circuit, while the train advances through a geography now too dark to see. The blanket feels substantial beneath your palm. You draw it over you and settle against the pillow. The linen is cool at first, then gradually takes on warmth. Beneath the carriage floor, the rails repeat their low, even phrase. The attendant checks the water glass, luggage strap, and curtain. Then he lowers the reading lamp slightly, leaving enough light for comfort. Beyond the door, quiet footsteps move along the corridor. Another berth is lowered into place, followed by the whisper of linen being drawn smooth. A bell gives one discreet note farther down the carriage. The attendant listens, then turns toward it. Before leaving, he asks whether you wish to be called in the morning. Your answer is noted with the same care given to tickets, passports, and station times. On an international sleeping car service, Rest depends upon many small acts of attention. Someone remains awake to observe the hour, recognize an approaching stop or frontier, assist with documents, and remember when a passenger wishes to be roused. The attendant wishes you good night. The door closes softly, and you secure it from within. Now the compartment seems quieter, though it is never silent. Curtains temper the faint window rattle. Carpet hushes footsteps. Upholstery softens each vibration. Still the wheels sound below. The springs breathe over uneven track, and a fitting murmurs once, at the edge of hearing. The carriage leans into a broad curve. Your coat moves almost imperceptibly. Water trembles in the glass without spilling. The timetable remains beneath your spectacles, shifting no more than the thickness of its paper. You settle more deeply into the berth. The pillow yields beneath your head, and the wall carries a mild warmth. The lamp shines across the smooth linen and upper edge of the blanket. Beyond that circle of light, the compartment rests in shadow. The mirror holds a final amber reflection. The luggage strap remains firm. Your shoes wait beneath the bed. The route has been studied. Dinner has ended. The necessary papers are close at hand, while the attendant knows the hours and stations ahead. Beyond the curtain, fields, bridges, signal posts, and scattered villages pass through darkness. Within the compartment, the night has become smaller and gentler. A pillow, a blanket, a glass of water, and the quiet wooden door. You lower the lamp once more. The light barely touches the shelf where the watch lies beside the timetable. Its hands continue to move, though there is no reason to follow them. Through the pillow comes the deep rhythm of the rails. It is less a sound now than a pattern carried through wood, metal, mattress, and linen. Wheels pass over rail joints. Springs answer with a slow release. The carriage sways to one side and returns. For a long while the measure remains unchanged. Then the spaces between the beats seem to widen. The change is so slight that it may be only a feeling through the pillow. The wheels cross a set of points with a muted sequence of clicks. The carriage sways once, settles, and moves with a slower rhythm. Somewhere ahead, beyond the heavy curtain, platform lamps wait beneath a midnight station clock. The corridor remains quiet, the door stays softly closed, and the wheels carry the compartment onward. Chapter 7. The First Midnight Station. The change begins so gradually that, at first, it seems to belong to the rhythm of the carriage, rather than to the railway outside. The wheels are still turning beneath you, but their measured phrases have begun to stretch. Each length of rail lasts a little longer. The gentle sway grows smaller, and a sustained backward pressure holds you softly against the berth, as though the train were leaning into its own great weight. Far ahead the brakes are being applied. Nothing happens suddenly. The long train simply gives up its speed in careful degrees. Beyond the heavy curtain, darkness is no longer complete. A faint yellow brightness appears at the edge of the fabric, disappears, and then returns. The train passes a signal lamp, followed by the dim outline of a railway building. Beneath the carriage, the sounds gather into a denser pattern as the wheels enter a network of points and crossings. There are several muted clicks, then a hollow passage over a short crossing, then more clicks, irregular but unhurried. The timetable lies folded beside the berth. Somewhere among its narrow columns of print is the place now approaching. It may be an important junction in eastern France, or perhaps a frontier station near the Swiss border and the Jura Hills. Valerbay would be a plausible setting on some journeys, though routes, rolling stock, and schedules changed over the years. On one service, the frontier might be reached before midnight. On another, it might come later. Whatever the name upon the station sign, the quiet work of the railway continues in much the same way. The train slows further. For a little while, you hear the soft contact of the brakes, the low rolling murmur of wheels, and an occasional settling sound from the compartment fittings. The glass near the wash basin trembles. Your coat turns slightly on its hook, then comes to rest. The first platform lamp passes the window. Its light enters as a warm line around the curtain, moving from one side of the compartment to the other. A second follows, and then a third. Each shines briefly upon the brass edge of the wash basin and the polished frame of the door before slipping away. You lift one corner of the curtain just enough to look outside. The station is broad, but quiet. Pools of yellow light lie upon damp paving stones, separated by long bands of shadow. Rails shine darkly between the platforms. Beneath the station roof, Pale wisps of steam drift at the height of a person's knees, curling around boots, luggage wheels, and the low frame of a handcart. A clock hangs above the platform. Its pale face is easy to see, though the hands are partly hidden by shadow. Below it, two railway employees stand beside a small office door. One holds a folder, the other listens, glancing once toward the arriving carriages. The train draws level with them at little more than walking pace. A station sign slides past the window. Its lettering is visible only for a moment. You catch part of the name before it is hidden by the curtain and the dark frame between the windows. The brakes ease. There is one final turning of the wheels, a quiet sigh from somewhere beneath the carriage, and then stillness. The absence of the familiar rail rhythm is almost a sound in itself. For several seconds, nothing replaces it. Then a cart rolls across the paving joints. Its small wheels make a sequence of soft knocks, evenly spaced. The cart carries several parcels, a bundle secured with cord, and two canvas mail bags. There need not be a dedicated mail car for such things. At a station like this, letters and small consignments may be passed between railway staffs, sorted onward, or placed in a suitable luggage space. The cart stops farther along the platform. Low voices follow, indistinct through the glass. One voice speaks in French, another answers in a language less familiar to you, though the tone is equally calm. A door opens, a parcel is lifted, the door closes once more. Near the front of the train, steam thickens beneath the lamps. You cannot see the locomotive from the compartment. It may be taking water, receiving an inspection, or preparing to give way to another engine, suited to the next section of line. Steam locomotives remain common along much of the journey, while some sections are already electrified. The same locomotive has not necessarily traveled with these sleeping cars all the way from Paris. Engines may be exchanged as railway systems, borders, gradients, and operating needs change. Through it all, the carriages preserve their small interior world of fresh linen, shaded lamps, heavy curtains, and polished wood. A lantern moves beside the train. It rises and falls with the steps of the person carrying it, casting a round amber reflection upon each window. The railway employee pauses near the wheels, looks along the underside of the carriage, and continues. Farther along, someone examines a brake connection. A hand touches a metal fitting. There is a brief tap, followed by silence. Near the front, the couplings settle. The sound reaches you as a firm but cushioned knock, passed gently through the train from one carriage to the next. It is not harsh. It is simply the long line of vehicles adjusting after the brakes or locomotive have been handled. Inside the corridor, quiet footsteps approach. The sleeping car attendant has remained awake to oversee this part of the journey. Earlier in the evening, he collected tickets, and where the arrangements allowed, passports as well. This may spare some passengers from presenting their documents personally at every change of railway administration. The attendant can meet officials, answer routine questions, and return the papers when the formalities are complete. Still, a traveler may sometimes be disturbed. A photograph may need to be compared with a face, or a small detail may require confirmation. The footsteps stop outside your compartment. There is a light knock, gentle enough not to carry far along the corridor. When you answer, the door opens only part way. The attendant stands beneath the dim corridor lamp, one hand resting on the brass handle. Beside him is an official in a dark uniform, holding your passport open at the page with the photograph. The official offers a quiet greeting. He looks at the photograph, then at you, and asks a simple question about your destination. His manner is professional and unhurried. Paper shifts softly beneath his hands. A stamp touches the page with a small, dry sound. The passport is handed back to the attendant. The official thanks you in a low voice. The door closes again. Their footsteps move onward to the next compartment, becoming fainter over the carpet. After a pause, there is another subdued knock, almost lost beneath the distant hiss of steam. You let the curtain fall into place. Beyond it, the station continues its work. Documents pass between railway staffs. A baggage label is checked beneath a lamp. A small supply box is carried toward one of the service cars. It may contain provisions or bottled water for the journey ahead. Elsewhere, bundles of linen may be loaded or removed. Mail bags, parcels, and luggage are shifted with practiced care. Railway workers inspect what must be inspected, and exchange the paperwork needed for the next part of the route. If the locomotive is being changed, or if a brake inspection or border formality takes longer, the pause may extend for a while. Yet there is no sense of hurry. Each person attends to a familiar task, and each task joins the others through custom, timetable, and quiet cooperation. None of it requires a crowd. The platform remains spacious. Only a few figures move beneath the lamps. Their voices are low, and broad intervals of silence lie between one sound and the next. A brake connection is examined. Silence. The cart rolls several feet. Another pause. A door closes farther down the train. Steam drifts beneath the roof. From the compartment, you receive only these fragments, never the whole arrangement. The station is like a room glimpsed through a half-open door, orderly and complete, beyond what can be seen. Its work remains partly mysterious, not because anything is concealed, but because so much can be done quietly while the passengers rest. The mattress still holds the warmth of sleep. The folded timetable waits beside the bed. The shaded lamp touches the woodwork with a low amber glow, and the heavy curtain keeps most of the platform light outside. For a time there is only stillness. Then the lantern beside the carriages turns toward the front. A railway employee lifts one arm, giving a hand signal. Somewhere near the locomotive, another lamp answers. A muted call crosses the platform, followed by the clear but restrained note of a whistle. The train remains motionless for one more breath. Then the couplings draw tight. A gentle movement travels through the carriage, more felt than heard. The wheels turn once. They pause beneath the weight behind them, then turn again. Slowly, the platform begins to slide past the window. The station clock moves out of view. The office door follows, then the handcart, now standing beneath a lamp. Steam folds around the boots of two railway workers and is left behind. One by one, the platform lamps pass beyond the curtain. Their amber glow travels across the compartment, fades and returns with the next lamp. The intervals between them begin to shorten as the train gathers speed. Points and crossings speak beneath the wheels in a close, irregular pattern. The carriage leans gently, straightens, and follows the line away from the station. Behind you, the last moving lantern becomes a small yellow point, then disappears. Ahead lies open country. The scattered clicks begin to lengthen into an even measure. The wheels recover their smoother phrase, carrying the train beyond the frontier buildings and damp platforms, onward beneath the quiet midnight sky. The berth sways softly once more. The pillow receives the returning rhythm, and as the final station lamp fades behind the curtain, the regular sound of the rails settles around you again, steady and reassuring, leading the sleeping car into the countryside beyond. Chapter 8. Through the Sleeping Countryside. Beyond the frontier buildings, the railway opens into darkness. The close, irregular tapping of points gradually falls away, and the carriage settles into a broader rhythm. For a while, firm, repeated beats pass beneath the floor, each one moving through the compartment with quiet certainty. Then the sound softens. The wheels seem to roll rather than strike, and the long sleeping car continues steadily over an open stretch of line. You remain at rest beneath the folded blankets, aware of the journey without needing to follow it. The deeper sounds of the train arrive through more than the air. They travel through the berth and the paneled wall, through the floor and into the pillow, becoming less like separate noises and more like the gentle presence of motion itself. The carriage rides upon two bogies, one beneath each end. These pivoting wheel assemblies turn slightly as the railway bends, allowing a long car to follow curves more smoothly than the short, rigid carriages of earlier years. Yet even a finely built sleeping car is never perfectly still. It sways by a small degree. It vibrates over a rougher length of rail. The woodwork gives an occasional soft creak, and now and then the whole compartment makes a mild, sideways lurch before returning to its measured course. Nothing in this movement is quite regular enough to become mechanical. The rhythm changes with the line, and those variations make it soothing. On a straight section, the wheels maintain a firm and spacious measure. Along a curve, one rail begins to sing faintly beneath the weight of the train. Over a set of points comes a gathering of sounds, several close taps, followed by a final heavier note. Then smooth running returns, as though the railway has completed one quiet sentence and begun another. Within the compartment, the smaller fittings answer in their own subdued ways. A glass shade in the corridor rings once, very faintly, and is still. A latch touches its metal plate. Somewhere nearby, a wooden panel adjusts to the slight strain of a bend. A coat hanger shifts upon its hook and settles again. These modest sounds are softened by carpet, curtains, upholstery, and the careful construction of the car. Behind the heavy curtain, the countryside remains mostly unseen. The compartment lamp, though dimmed, lays a pale reflection upon the window. In it you can make out the edge of the berth, a small gleam from a brass fitting, and the folded timetable resting near the wall. Beyond that reflected room lies the much larger darkness through which the train is passing. When the curtain parts slightly with the sway, the outside world appears in fragments. A signal lamp hangs in the distance, green and solitary. It remains still as the train approaches, then glides toward the edge of the window, and is gone. A line of telegraph poles follows for a little while, each a bright shape, briefly caught against the sky. Their wires cannot be seen, but their regular procession marks the railway's path across the fields. Between them lies darkness, with only the faintest suggestion of low hills. Earlier in the night, the route may have carried the train through Burgundy, where vineyards cover gentle slopes and villages gather around old church towers. At this hour, the ordered rows of vines are hidden. A traveler looking out sees only the broad shape of the land, and here and there a farmhouse lamp. One such light appears alone across a field. It glows for several moments, reflected faintly in the window, and then slips behind the carriage. Darkness closes over the view once more. The railway begins to curve. The carriage inclines so gently that the change is sensed before it is understood. Beneath the floor, the wheel sounds draw closer on one side and deepen on the other. Farther ahead, a whistle reaches you through closed doors and heavy curtains. It is muffled by distance and fabric, a rounded note with no sharp edge. It fades into the countryside before the train has fully straightened. The girders are heard more clearly than seen. For a few moments, the sound beneath the train becomes hollow and spacious. The wheels speak rapidly over the structure, and the low vibration rises through the berth. Through the narrow gap in the curtain, moonlight rests upon a strip of water. It may be a river, or perhaps a channel running beside cultivated fields. The surface gives back one quiet silver line. A dark bank passes across it. The bridge resonance ends, and the train returns to solid ground. The wheels resume their softer rolling phrase. Farther east, the land begins almost imperceptibly to change. Low hills gather into larger forms. The route toward the Jura and French-speaking Switzerland does not reveal itself all at once. There are simply deeper shadows beyond the fields, wooded slopes, and occasional villages resting beneath the rising land. A church tower appears among several scattered windows. Without visible streets between them, the houses seem to float in the night. For a brief interval, the village travels beside the train. Then the tower falls behind, the last window disappears, and only the faint reflection of the compartment remains. Throughout these overnight miles, railway work continues beyond the traveler's notice. Signalmen watch the line, station staff prepare platforms and exchange messages. Track workers, mail clerks, attendants, and engine crews keep the long service moving from one railway district to another. The resting passenger experiences their cooperation mainly as continuity. A signal clears. The train slows gently. A departure follows at the appointed time, and the rails carry the sleeping cars onward. Where locomotives are changed, the character of the journey may change with them. By the interwar years, Switzerland's principal railway lines were increasingly worked by electric locomotives. Overhead wires followed the rails, supported at intervals by catenary structures beside the track. An electric locomotive has no steam exhaust beat. Its pull may seem quieter and more continuous, though the wheels and coaches still make their many sounds. After a locomotive change, there may be a different whistle, a new vibration at the head of the train, or a smoother pattern of acceleration. The sleeping cars remain the same, but the force drawing them onward acquires another voice. Toward morning, much later in the journey, the route will approach the long Simplon tunnel beneath the Alps. It does not come soon after Paris, even though a night journey can fold great distances into a single impression. For now, there are still open stretches, wooded slopes, rivers, junctions, and quiet stations ahead. The higher mountains remain mostly unseen, suggested only by a darker edge along the horizon. The train enters a shorter tunnel, sound closes around the carriage, and grows deeper, reflected from walls just beyond the windows. The low rolling note becomes full and enclosed. A faint tremor passes along the woodwork. Then the darkness outside changes texture. Open air returns beyond the glass, and the sound releases itself into the valley. For several miles, the line follows level ground. Poplars stand in a row beside an unseen channel, their narrow crowns outlined against a sky only slightly lighter than the earth. Overhead supports pass one after another, dark bars moving across the window. Between them appears a field, a low wall, and then a road with no traffic upon it. You notice these things only briefly. The curtain settles back into place, and the reflected compartment becomes complete again. The linen remains pale beneath the shaded lamp. A brass edge catches a narrow amber gleam. The folded timetable waits beside the berth, no longer needed until morning. Beyond the door, the corridor is quiet. Somewhere, perhaps several compartments away, the attendant takes a few careful steps, pauses, and continues. The line bends once more. There is a gentle sideways movement, followed by the faint complaint of a wheel against the curve. Then the rails straighten, and the car returns to its patient swaying. Sounds gather and separate. A rolling murmur beneath the berth, a light tapping at the rail joints, the low vibration of speed, an occasional answering creak from timber and metal. Another bridge passes below, shorter than the first. Its hollow resonance rises and is gone, almost before the eye can find the water. A few minutes later comes a junction. The bogies turn across several sets of points, producing a rapid clatter that travels from the front of the car to the rear. A latch stirs. The glass shade gives one delicate note. Then all is quiet again, except for the wheels. The rhythm becomes spacious. For a time there is nothing outside but fields and the dark folds of the land. A single signal appears, then passes. A line of poles follows, then ends. One farmhouse lamp rests against the darkness before slipping away. Each image rises for only a moment, then dissolves back into night. Gradually the train's pace begins to change. The steady rolling becomes a sequence of softer metallic murmurs. The carriage rocks forward almost imperceptibly as the brakes take hold. The joints in the rails seem closer now, though the train is moving more slowly. Somewhere ahead, points and crossings wait beneath a sleeping line. Outside, the darkness is no longer entirely empty. A distant lamp appears beside the rails, at first no larger than the signal lights that have passed through the night. It grows slowly, revealing a pale platform edge and the shadow of a roof. The train is approaching another station. Behind the reflected curtain, small human signs emerge from the countryside. A clock face, a waiting cart, a doorway lit from within, perhaps a figure standing quietly beneath an awning. The wheels cross the outer points in a measured pattern, and the long sleeping car glides toward the lamps, carrying the hush of fields, rivers, and wooded slopes into a station where another language waits upon the signs. Chapter 9. Stations Between Languages. The station gathers gently around the slowing train. First comes the platform edge, pale beneath a row of lamps. Then a wooden baggage cart appears, standing with its handles raised. Beyond it are doors with glass panels, a bench beneath the station canopy, and a clock whose dark hands mark an hour when most houses are quiet. The minute hand seems especially slender against the illuminated face. The sleeping cars pass the clock one by one. Their polished sides hold brief reflections of lamps, pillars, and waiting railwaymen. Each reflection glides along the windows, then disappears toward the rear. The brakes release a low sigh. Couplings settle through the length of the train, and the Simplon Orient Express comes to rest. For a moment, the silence feels broad. It is not a complete silence. Steam moves somewhere near the locomotive. A door closes at the far end of the platform. Shoes cross the paving with an even, official step. Yet all these sounds are softened by the hour and by the great length of the train. They seem less like interruptions than parts of the railway's patient work. This is still the first night of the journey east from Paris. The train has not crossed half a continent in a few dark hours, though it may feel as if it has entered a world apart. Italy remains ahead. Beyond Italy, after much more travel, will come the lands then known as Yugoslavia, followed by Bulgaria, and at the far end of the route, Turkey. Those greater changes of language and landscape belong to later days. Here in western Switzerland, the change is quieter. French remains familiar, it appears on signs and forms, and it passes easily between members of the railway staff. A traveler waking briefly might hear a phrase on the platform and not know at once whether the train has left France. The accent may differ. A uniform may have another cut. The station emblem and the markings on a wagon may belong to another railway administration. Yet many of the words remain recognizable. International travel is not always announced by a sudden shift. Sometimes one country gives way to another through small details: a cap badge, the shape of a ticket punch, a different style of clock, the careful exchange of documents beneath a shaded lamp. In the corridor, a sleeping car attendant is awake. He stands near the end vestibule, dressed neatly despite the late hour. One hand rests lightly against the wall as the carriage makes its final small movement. Beside him is a leather wallet containing papers collected earlier from passengers. Depending on the route and the procedures of the moment, passports and other travel documents may be examined without requiring everyone to leave a warm compartment. It is one of the quiet services of the sleeping car. Formalities are managed with as little disturbance as possible. His voice is low. A greeting is exchanged in French. Papers are opened. Names are compared with lists. A pencil moves slowly down a page. Stamps, where needed, are applied with controlled pressure upon a small writing surface. Nothing is hurried, yet no time is wasted. The men know that the train has a timetable to keep. They also know that most of its passengers are resting behind closed doors. Farther along the platform, other workers attend to the practical life of the train. A lamp is lifted beside a wheel. A man bends briefly to inspect a bearing, then straightens. Another walks beside the carriages, listening and looking. Near the head of the platform, railwaymen confer by the locomotive. Their duties belong to different companies and different systems, but their purpose is shared. They are here to carry passengers, luggage, mail, and dining car stores safely onward. The international sleeping cars provide a thread of continuity. Designed for service across borders, they travel from one national network to another, while preserving the same calm interior world. The brass handle beside a compartment door does not change at the frontier. The folded linen remains smooth. The wash basin waits behind its polished cover. The carpet continues down the corridor in the same muted pattern. Outside, authority changes hands. Inside, the shaded lamps still cast amber circles upon polished wood. From your compartment, the station can be seen through a narrow parting in the heavy curtain. A sign hangs beneath the canopy. Its letters are clear, though the name seems to belong as much to the night as to the map. Below it are smaller notices. Some are in French. Elsewhere on the Swiss railway system, German and Italian are common, and in certain regions Romansh is spoken as well. Switzerland contains several linguistic worlds within a compact landscape. Yet along this western approach, French offers a gentle bridge from the country just left behind. The differences that lie ahead will be more audible. In Italy, station calls will take on the rounded sounds of Italian. Farther east, unfamiliar place names and new alphabets will appear. Railway terms, customs questions, menus, and currencies will change again. The journey toward Istanbul will depend upon cooperation among many administrations, each with its own locomotives, crews, regulations, and familiar ways of working. But those places will not arrive tonight merely because the train is famous for reaching them. They remain properly distant, separated from this platform by mountain lines, daylight hours, meals, border crossings, and the long measured labor of the rails. The timetable folded beside the berth holds them in orderly columns. For now, the page describing this part of the journey is enough. A cart rolls past outside. Its small wheels make a dry whisper over the paving. Canvas mail sacks rest upon it, tied and labeled for onward travel. Railways carry correspondence as naturally as they carry passengers. Letters written in one language may cross into a region where another is spoken, then continue farther still, guided by addresses, sorting marks, and the practiced hands of postal workers. Near the station building, two men exchange a few words. One answers in French, the other gives a short acknowledgement that might belong to a local expression, or simply to the private shorthand of railway work. A meaning is clear between them. A door is secured, a document is returned, a lantern moves toward the front of the train. A sleeping car attendant comes back along the corridor. His footsteps are nearly soundless upon the carpet. At one compartment he pauses, not to wake its occupant but to make certain the latch is settled. He adjusts the curtain where a narrow line of platform light has entered. Then he returns the passport wallet to its place and glances at his watch. Beyond the glass, the station clock continues its steady account. Across borders, time itself requires agreement. Timetables depend upon shared minutes, understood signals, and carefully arranged connections. A train arriving from one railway must be received by the next. Tracks must be clear, staff must know which carriages will continue, and which may be detached. Messages pass ahead by telegraph or telephone, allowing distant stations to prepare before the lamps of the train appear. For the resting traveler, the result is often beautifully uneventful. A platform comes alongside. Officials perform their duties. Somewhere a signature is added, a brake is examined, or a mail sack is transferred. Quiet voices pass between people who know their work. Then the route opens again. The locomotive gives a subdued whistle. A green lamp is raised near the end of the platform. The first pull is so gentle that the curtains barely move. One coupling tightens, followed by another, and the motion travels through the train in a soft sequence. The station clock begins to slide backward. The bench, the cart, and the glass-paneled doors follow it slowly into the dark. Soon, only the platform lamps remain, passing one after another. Their reflections flow across the compartment ceiling and fade. The wheels gather their former rhythm. French-speaking Western Switzerland extends beyond the curtains, calm and largely unseen, while the more distant languages of the route wait for later days. Tonight there is no need to hurry toward them. Italy will come in its proper time. Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and Turkey remain much farther along the route, beyond the passage of daylight and the turning of several timetable pages. The first night still surrounds the train, deep and quiet. For now, the Simplon Orient Express carries many destinations within one steady movement. There are folded maps, official papers, polished wood, fresh linen, and passengers from different countries resting beneath the same long roof. In the corridor, the attendant keeps his quiet watch. Beside the berth, the timetable lies folded and undisturbed. The rails require no single spoken language. They continue beneath the carriage, joined section to section. The soft sway returns. The last station lamp narrows to a point, then disappears. Beyond the curtain, Western Switzerland settles once more into darkness, and the train moves steadily onward through the first night.